So one of the best tools that I have been very blessed to have for marketing purposes, which was not the intention originally, is my TED Talk. I have a TED Talk. I've done it 3 times, as a matter of fact, but my one main one has almost 7 million views. And that has really helped with Google searches over the years, as well as, of course, chat now. So it's called Want to Sound Like a Leader? Start by saying your name right.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Kevin, and today we are joined by Dr. Laura Sicola. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be here.
Yeah, pre-podcast we were talking, and you said that you had 17 years of coaching experience. So I'm so curious about what began your coaching journey, what made you want to do coaching, and more importantly, what made you want to turn it into a business? We'd love to start there.
I am very much what one might call an accidental entrepreneur and a recovering academic. So I was a teacher at public schools for a few years, and then I moved into academia with the intention of being a university professor. So I did my PhD over at University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. I was teaching there for a while, and let's just say realized that the tenure track in university life was not what the brochure said it was going to be, let's put it that way, and recognized that there were financial constraints as well, frankly. And a lot of career tracks, you go someplace because you are passionate about it, only to realize afterwards that you need a little bit more than what they offer. And my motto became, I was never motivated by money until you told me I couldn't have any. And that was kind of the life of the new faculty member in the social sciences. And I just thought, okay, something's got to give. And when there was a serendipitous conversation that I had with somebody at a wedding reception, actually, and he asked about my research, and I told him, and he said, I've always had an interest and an instinct, but I never had the data to back it up. And you have the data. It's relevant. Would you want to come into a training for my team? And it turned out he was a vice president of government programs at IBM. And that was my first foray into consulting and doing independent work. And that kind of gave me the bug. That was the taste for it. And the training led to other opportunities and spread out from there. So I stayed teaching part-time for about 5 years while exploring this world of entrepreneurship and saying, okay, I've got all this work in academia, work in research, work in education. How do I translate that to the corporate space? And it took about 5 years before I finally figured out what corporate calls it. What do they look for? What are they budget for that they're willing to spend? Because that's really important. It's one thing for us as coaches to say, here's what I'm great at. Here's the passion. Here's the skill. Here's what I can do for you. But if we don't label it right, they don't pay for it. It's just like with Google or with chat or whatever else. You got to put the right labels on it or no one's going to find you, much less keep digging. So that was the beginning. And training and teaching are similar skills in many ways to coaching, and that's where it took off from there.
I'm really curious because I'm sure it's changed over the last 17 years, but everyone talks about ICP and target audience. So I'm kind of curious, how did you decide who you wanted to help over the years?
My background was really originally working with non-native English speakers, non-American born, highly professional, highly educated, highly experienced professionals, but the international community, because this was who I was working with in the public schools as well, and who I was working with at my university research. So helping them where they would, it's a very common experience of being a quick hire, but then hitting what I called a linguistic glass ceiling. And where they would rise to kind of a mid-level position in the corporate space, but then somehow just never be able to create a personal brand that said, I am a leader. There was a disconnect culturally, linguistically, et cetera. And so my work was in helping them. And then one thing led to another about 12 years ago or so. And it occurred, number one, in the way, again, that I was branding, there was not understanding truly the corporate lingo yet. There was a little bit of challenge because the powers that be, who typically ended up being white, monolingual English, typically male, typically whatever else, kind of would look at what I was sharing and say, oh, so you're a tutor. It's remedial. It's this, it's that. And I thought, no, on all of the above. And so then I figured out that the label was really about leadership communication and executive presence. I didn't know the term executive presence. That's not something they talk about in academia. So once I
Yeah.
figured out that these were the labels, and oh yeah, here's a thought, native speakers aren't really great communicators either. What a neat thought.
Mm.
So when I stripped away the niche of the market initially and said, look, I'm a linguist, I can help people find their voice, literally and
Yeah.
figuratively, and use it well. That's where people went, ooh, okay, well, that we definitely need help with. And so it became a
Mm.
broader piece, broader focus. And then people would say, oh, and I also have this guy from India, I've got this guy from China, I've got this woman from Mexico, whatever else. Do you think you could help her too? And I went, matter of fact, well, yes, I can. I'm so glad you thought of that. So it's all about helping people. You got to learn to speak their language, and then they understand.
I love the iterations, like that whole journey that you walked us through, the iterations that you went through. And when you finally got that aha moment, like it was just much easier to get these engagements and all that too.
Yes.
Which leads me to the next question. Tell me about your marketing. How do people kind of like find out about you? How do people kind of work with you? What is that
There's a,
customer journey like?
the beauty is that I've been doing it long enough that now when people look for executive communication or leadership communication coaches, that ChatGPT often brings me up, which is really nice to happen. Yeah, that was a good one. I actually asked Chat the other day, just like, who are the top 10 people in space XYZ? And it gave me 9. And then my name was number 10. And it even said in parentheses, yes, you. So I thought that was kind of funny. But a couple of my best, it's kind of like Chat's got a little sense of humor to it as well. But so one of the best tools that I have been very blessed to have for marketing purposes, which was not the intention originally, is my TED Talk. I have a TED Talk. I've done it 3 times, as a matter of fact, but my one main one has almost 7 million views. And that has really helped with Google searches over the years, as well as, of course, Chat now. So it's called Want to Sound Like a Leader? Start by saying your name right. And it's just caught on, which is kind of neat. So a lot of people will say, I stumbled upon your TED Talk and then kind of went down the rabbit hole to look you up.
No, it's so crazy. I think I've actually seen your TED Talk. Like now it's sounding familiar. The dots are connecting. I need to rewatch it again and remember exactly, but it sounds very familiar. That's pretty
It has
awesome.
been funny when every now and then I'll be at a conference someplace or an event and somebody will be talking to me and go, oh, why do I feel like I know you? What is it? And they'll go, oh my gosh, I watched your TED Talk. And it's just, all random connections in the middle of some stage that it's kind of fun. So the TED Talk has been very helpful. Speaking engagements are helpful. And frankly, referrals. Because once you have a client internal to a company, my ideal clients typically, aside from the career coaching piece, are corporate. So I work with Comcast, with Accenture, big companies like that. So once you're in, if they're happy with the work you do, it's not hard to spread out internally. So it's the internal referrals. But for career coaching and things, it's much more the external. Someone will say, oh, I know someone who could stand to work with you, and they make the introductions. So that you can't be afraid to ask for introductions. That's a key piece.
That's so interesting. When you reflect on your 17-year history of being a coach and running this coaching business, what are some of the challenges that you've kind of noticed when it came to finding clients over the years?
Understanding the difference between the services that I offer that are intended to help people keep their job versus the ones that I've more recently been offering to help people find new ones, because one is corporate paid and one is out of pocket. And every now and then I have, of course, had coaching clients who have found me on their own and they're saying, I don't want my company involved. I don't want, I want this to be a personal investment. I realize that my communication skills are at a point where it's going to be a career derailer if I don't get better at this now. It's going to be a limiting factor. So I want to invest in myself privately. It's hard because since my typical clientele is, Fortune 100 kind of companies, my prices are aligned with that. And most people don't want to pay that out of pocket. So I really am looking for the elite clients who recognize that, okay, you get the right kind of SVP, CXO role working with me, it's going to pay for itself very quickly, in no small part because A, I will help you shorten the transition window and get into the role you want, and faster, that is. And number two, I will help you negotiate your contract better. So with it by your first paycheck, this will pay for itself. Plus then multiples with every paycheck that, from here into eternity. So people have to be willing to recognize an investment in themselves and measure an ROI. Otherwise, they're not going to do it. So marketing to the individual, I don't market to individuals. I market my services. And if the individual comes to me and says, I want to work with you myself, let's do this, great. But I don't pitch to individuals because they all are scared of making, not all, but most are too afraid to let go of the money because they see it as a cost that may not pay back, as opposed to an investment that you got to roll up your sleeves and do the work and it'll pay off.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I'm actually really fascinated about like the way coaching businesses structure their offers. And you mentioned a few ways of like lowering the risk on their side where, you'll help them negotiate, you'll help them get there faster. And how do you I'm kind of curious how I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question. I guess how do you lower the risk for those people looking for that transition? I guess what are all the different ways that you've come up with if you're open to sharing that?
I think what's most important is that during the initial onboarding call, the breakthrough session that we do, which is complimentary prior to confirming, got to get to know who they are, let them understand my system, et cetera.
Yeah.
The number one, they have to be clear on the fact that I am not a placement agency. I don't have jobs, in a file that I'm going to just dole out to them. They got to do that work. I will guide them through it, but they have to commit to doing the work. So, and I tell them all the time, see this? It's a pen, not a wand. So it's not magic, it's science and it's art together. It's not the same thing. So during that breakthrough session, the key is to operationalize success. Because everybody that I have worked with in the career transition is on different stages in the journey. Some are at the point of saying, I hate where I am, I'm burned out, I need something else. I just don't know what it is. Help me figure it out. And others are, I've been out of work for a while. I need it fast. So how do I rise above the competition when there's 1,000 applicants for every role? And, 2/3 of those applications aren't even real people. They're AI bot generated, who knows what. So how do I stand out? How do I get seen, get noticed, and get viewed as the obvious choice on top of it? So it really, and there's a lot in between those two extremes. So I need to know where you are and what you need to happen by the end of whether you do the 3-month or the 6-month transition package with me. So I need to know what assets you've put together. I need to know how comfortable you are with interviewing, with networking, with outreach. Are you like, sure, I'll talk to anybody anytime, no problem. I've talked to a million people. Or is it, oh my God, the idea of having to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn makes me want to crawl under the table and hide. Okay, have very different things to work with or to work on with those two people. So I need to meet them where they are and figure out what's a reasonable goal. What would make them happy? Aside, understanding the one thing I cannot guarantee is that you will get a job, because that's the reality of it. So what else would you need to feel like this was a very successful and valuable investment?
It seems like this is very intimate work, like a lot of one-on-one coaching.
Yes.
And you coming from an academic background, it's really interesting because I hear coaches talk about, oh yeah, we do one-on-one, sometimes we do group coaching, sometimes we have organizational training. I'm kind of curious, for your coaching business, what coaching modalities have you kind of leaned toward, experimented with? I'm so curious from your end.
Well, for specifically the career transition coaching or the executive coaching overall?
Actually interested in both, whatever you feel like is appropriate.
Coaching broadly for me has been one-on-one. Occasionally I have done groups when there has been a team that is pre-existing. So if a company wants me to work with half a dozen VPs or directors or something and really elevate the whole level worth of people, the communications internally, et cetera, great. Then we'll do a year together as we go. But it's typically one-on-one. It's funny from a business perspective, I would love to do more group work, but I have never managed to figure out the secret sauce for creating cohorts and selling seats, whether it's rolling and people just join at whatever stage they are and it's month to month or a year versus the next cohort's going to launch in January. Let's fill the 10 seats now. I've attempted it. I've tried various programs and I've taken programs about how to scale a coaching business. I just haven't managed. It hasn't taken root for me yet.
I see.
So if somebody else
And
has
since
figured
you're
it out,
working,
great.
yeah. And I mean, I was going to say, it seems like you know a lot about it, how it's structured and all that sort of stuff too. So it's interesting to see your perspective on this. Okay. Another thing I love your perspective on, because a lot of career coaches struggle with like things like pricing strategies and pricing. And of course, you don't need to give any hard numbers on this podcast, but I'm kind of curious, what kind of pricing strategies do you use to structure? I know some coaches do, project based, they have some sort of retainer or some sort of value based like type of models. But what have you kind of like, I can't think of the word, but kind of been drawn to, I guess?
I think the most valuable piece of advice I ever received, probably 12 to 15 years ago, was you cannot charge by the hour, period. You have to you put a price on the value of the results that you are committed to helping the client get. You don't put a value on your time. Now, of course, it depends on who you are, what kind of coaching you're doing, who your clientele is, are you doing succession packages or year-long things, or do you do retainers versus something else? There's many ways to do it. If you're working with 20-somethings who are newly out of college and helping them find jobs, that's going to be very different from my Fortune 500 corporate executive clients. So you're going to have to frame it differently. But the phrase that I heard years before I even started coaching was that if you're not losing some prospective clients because you charge too much, then you're not charging enough. Because if you're just and look, Walmart's a bazillion-dollar business, so nothing bad about Walmart. But if you're the Walmart of coaches, then okay, you'll take everybody, but it's really minimal, super thin margins, and you're going to be working your butt off 25 hours a day just trying to make ends meet. For me, in my space, I don't want to look, I've got a PhD. I've been doing this for 20 years almost, et cetera. So my packages start at 5 figures. And I don't want people to think about the value of my time, because when they do, then they start comparing it to others who are hourly that they've worked with. I had somebody say to me, well, but my lawyer charges $300 an hour and my therapist, charges $150 with insurance and with whatever else. So, you're charging a lot more than that. I'm going, first of all, I'm not a therapist and I'm not a lawyer. And I, like the snarky Jersey Italian to me, wanted to say, if that's what they're charging, that's their problem. But I decided not to respond in that snarky kind of way. And it's like, it's not about the value of my time. It's about the results. I mean, if you could work with a trainer at the gym who could get you to the Olympic level in, 6 months, as opposed to 5 years, wouldn't you pay a whole lot more just because they can get that kind of results that much faster, as opposed to saying, but that's only 6 months. I mean, you're only going to give me 6 months. What's wrong with that frame, right? So it's the result and the time, what you need, that's the value. And anybody who's going to argue the amount of the hourly rate, I always tell them, stop doing the math. You're doing the wrong calculation. You're trying to take my package rate and divide it by the number of sessions we're going to have. Wrong math. Stop doing that math, because it's not about the value of my time.
Yeah, I love where your mind's at, because this is where I personally feel about pricing. I feel I've been on both sides. So like, not necessarily for coaching, but hourly. I feel like, okay, coaches clearly hate hourly. Clients also hate hourly because they have to track the time and really trust the other person. It's just a bad experience for everyone. But something I really like about like how you price things is like people don't take consideration of the time that you spend all those years with your PhD. Yeah, they see that one moment, that 1 hour or whatever fixed amount of time that you spend with them, but then they correlate it with that 1 hour. And another interesting thing is like you're not the first person where they're like, oh, my lawyer charges this much. And I feel like those things are mutually like exclusive. Like they have
Yes.
nothing to do with each other.
Nothing.
I pay my lawnmower like $10 an hour, like the kid down the street.
Yep.
You should go ask him to do it for you then, right?
Exactly.
But but we're on the same page. Thank you for that insight, by the way. One other question I'm really curious about is your future goals. And I'm kind of curious, where do you want this coaching business to take you in the next few years? Do you have any secret dreams, big ambitions? Would love to kind of hear that from your end.
I'm actually looking to get on more large stages. So I've done a number of conferences. I was doing a lot more before COVID, been slow to get back into it, but would love to be on more national and international stages and speaking. I have had great experiences with that, both just I love being on the stage, but it's a great way to get business development because if you can knock their socks off, I don't mean just if they can hear me speak, I mean, you get up there and you give an audience an experience that knocks their socks off. That's when they're going to look you up. I did a talk at the Professional Businesswomen of California conference a couple of years ago, and had 1,800 women in that room, literally on their chairs and cheering and screaming and whatnot. It was an amazing experience. And when I went to dinner that night at the hotel restaurant, just to kind of decompress, I sat down at a table and there was a table of 4 women next to me. And the one leans over and goes, "You may not want to sit there. She hasn't stopped talking about you for the last 6 hours." And I just burst out laughing. And they were like, you have no idea. Like, it was so amazing what you did. And watching you do the transfer, all that kind of stuff. And so it turns out they were a team of leaders from Intel, which was great. So dinner landed a contract with Intel, but that's where you get the exposure. So if you are someone who can speak to audiences and not just get up there and yammer, but give them an experience that makes the audience go, "Oh my God," that's where you want to be. Compel them to seek you out. So that's been useful for me. Would love to get an agent. I've done some research, got to get to a little bit of a different point, but that would be a goal. And I would also love to do more groups with the senior level. To your earlier point.
Yeah. It seems like you're in really high demand, especially with TED Talk and the speaking, and there's a lot of things that you're doing. How do you balance everything? Ever think about like hiring or anything like that, like additional coaches or like help for your organization?
Well, I have a team behind me, so it's
Yeah.
not just, I mean, I have about 4 or 5 contractors who are, 1099s as opposed to full employees of sorts, but one's been with me for 5 years, one's been with me for 2 years. They've been loyal and everybody knows their lane. So it's not just me doing all the legwork and all the admin and all the tech and all the marketing and so it is very important, I think, to hire people to do that. And whether you use Upwork or you use whatever other programs are out there to find qualified people, you're going to have to do a little trial and error. Not everybody's going to work and not everybody's going to stick around. But when you find the right people, oh my gosh, what a difference that makes. As far as hiring somebody to do the delivery, I have looked into it. The first real step for that would be to hire someone to do the training component, because the speaking engagements, coaching, and training are the 3 service offerings that I have. And the training programs are things where they're preset. So I can train someone to deliver my material and let them go, especially for lower level organizations, maybe nonprofits or those that don't have as much of a budget. It's like, if you want, then there can be differences in pricing. So you want to work with me, you pay this. You want to work with my proxy, who's also amazing, but just not me, then you pay B instead.
Yeah.
So that helps. So that would be the next stage.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, I love that. Yeah. Another question I have for you is like, in your season of your coaching business right now, what are some challenges and bottlenecks that you're noticing that most people wouldn't be able to see on the outside looking in?
There's so many things that I like to do. I have a little bit of shiny object syndrome. So I love doing the relationship development. I love doing the outreach, whether it's LinkedIn or email and connecting with others. The picking just one project, one rock as it were. If anybody out there uses EOS or other,
Mhm.
quarterly kind of business management systems of sorts, it is picking the one thing and just focusing and saying, this is what I'm going to work on for this quarter. Here's the outcome that I want from it. I think it was Steve Jobs who said one of the challenges, or the main challenge of leadership, is saying no to the 90% of the things that you want to say yes to.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely, I want to say yes to everything. And I have learned the hard way over the years that you can't do that, because then you end up saying yes to everything, but not finishing anything. And that's
Mm,
a total waste of everything: time, money, energy, resources, etc. So learning to very respectfully, very, sadly, um, say no to an awful lot of people.
mm. Well, if you're open to it, what's one thing that you had to say no like recently that kind of like maybe not killed you? That's too strong a word, but like secretly you're like, oh man, I wish I could do that still.
I wish I could do that. I mean, I love doing more of these kinds of podcasts. My podcast was Speaking to Influence: Communication Secrets of the C-Suite, which is still
Mm,
available. And I ran it for 4.5 years, 200 and something episodes, interviewed leaders from all over the world, which was an amazing experience. And I loved doing it, but it wasn't generating the revenue that I wanted it to generate. So it was with heavy heart that I finally decided, okay, I think I need to learn to leverage it better. And if there's a way I can do that, or work with everything that I've created so far and leverage that better for revenue purposes, find out better ways to monetize, et cetera, then I can either start it over again or perhaps start a new show and V 2.0, as it were. But it was really hard to come to the decision to wind down the podcast.
mm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. When you told me that too, like pre-podcast, like you're telling me that you used to have a podcast, I was like
Mhm.
really curious why you shut it down, but thank you for explaining that.
You can't just click record, click stop, and then hit post. There's so much work to be done in editing and making sure it's a really good episode, and the quality of the assets you produce, and ensuring that, and again, I hired somebody who's terrific, lover, who does all of my social media promotion of podcasts. And I'll be happy to share this one, of course, but much time on a podcast, it really has to pay out an order of magnitude, or it just isn't worth the investment if you're going to develop.
Mm. Speaking about investments, Dr. Laura, I would love to play a game with you if you're open to it.
Okay.
This is through the lens of business investment, and we're going to play this game called First, Last, Best, Worst.
Okay.
So, what was your first business investment that you remember?
Yeah, I think the very first one was hiring a bookkeeper. That changed
Mm,
everything. I am not a numbers person. And I was really like, I tried to learn QuickBooks, and I spent probably a month doing online courses and speaking with this and hiring somebody to teach. And a friend came over and sat down, and I just cried. I don't do numbers. So I thought, this is stupid. Why am I killing myself to learn this software when I can pay somebody else $35 an hour to do it? And
yeah.
that, like, again, what am I charging for my time, hourly or not? And I'm killing a month trying to learn something that I hate. When
Mm,
there's somebody out there who's going, I would love to do that for you. Like, what's wrong with me? So the first hire by far was that, and best decision I ever made.
so that's your first and best. Interesting.
Well, I mean, it was definitely an incredibly smart one. I think similar to that, best decision was then to hire a business coach,
Mm,
because trying to figure that kind of stuff out on your own, the business coaches that I hired, I've had a number over the years, and they have all been incredibly valuable. And literally in the sense that they helped me understand my value, because again, I came out of
mhm.
teaching. Nobody has money in teaching. So
Yeah.
you're still looking at it from the lens of, okay, well, what could I afford? I guess that's what I would charge. I can't imagine
Mm,
charging more than that. And it wasn't until my first major business coach that I hired, who came out of the world of HR, and she said, well, let me just give you some insight here. It's not unusual, and we're talking, 15 years ago now, but she said, it's not unusual for a team to hire a trainer to come in and do $10,000 for the day. And I went, what? I think I'm missing a zero on this. Well, thank you for that insight. And, stomach bottomed out in some ways because, with your heart in your throat going, can I put a number that big on a proposal? And she's going, yeah, you can and you should, because their view is you get what you pay for. Now, you got to deliver value of that size. But if you say, if they're looking to buy a Tesla and you're saying, I have a Corolla, look, I have a Corolla pricing, they're going to say, well, then I'm assuming I'm going to get Corolla experience driving this car. I don't want Corolla experience. I want Tesla experience. So you got to change this. And so that was massively valuable. So I think the best decision was hiring my first business coach and honestly continuing to upgrade my coaching from there.
Yeah, I love what you said. Like, a good coach will always like kind of open up your eyes of what else is possible. And I love that like story that you told. So yeah.
Also kick you in the pants every now and then.
Yeah.
She should not be coddling you. It's not like, well, she paid me money to make her happy. No, I paid you money to help me get results. And if you see me getting in my own way, whining about something, dragging my feet, not following through on my commitments, yes, give me a kick in the pants. If not, I'm going to stop paying you. And I do the same thing with my clients. I will hold your feet to the fire, and that's the only way to get results.
What was your last investment that you made? Business investment?
I mentioned earlier EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System. If you've read the book Traction or Scaling Up, which are similar, using that business system, there's a lot more to it. If you're still out there as an independent person, you aren't going to need all of it, but it's still good food for thought. And I've known about it for years. I've used some principles, but in January, I hired a fractional integrator to come in and take over sort of high level operating and ensuring that all the people understood their roles, coordinated that better. We had those 90-day rocks, we had long-term goals, and to make sure that the trains were running on time. And it wasn't just keeping me, helping me keep my blinders on, so to speak, so that my horse was running just in one straight line. That was key. So the fractional integrator and using 90 officially. 90.io is the platform that does EOS digitally.
Yeah. So interesting. Yeah. Like, I've definitely read Traction. I've definitely like have that whole suite of books and all that. Really interesting that you're implementing that right now. Okay. Worst business investment that you kind of wish you got your money back from?
Worst business investment. Of course, I took on how to, honestly, to create group coaching programs. A lot of good information, but it didn't yield. And I'm sure much of it was user error, but it was also, I didn't realize until I got kind of 3/4 of the way through the program that it was all about how to build the group program, not about how to sell it. So sort of in the end of this program, but I invested a lot of money and we hadn't learned how to sell it yet. And I thought, oh, that's the upsell. I didn't really appreciate that. It was a little, not exactly bait and switch, but it was not made transparently clear at the beginning. So all this thing that I just spent how much money to build, then I have to pay you more to do that. That felt disintegrous to me.
Oh, I see. Do you think you would have felt as much, I don't know if the word's resentment, but like if they were upfront about it?
Yes, frankly. Here's what we teach you to build in level 1, and understand that that helps you be ready for this part of level 2. We expect clients to go into level 2. Most of them do, blah, blah, blah. Here's the big picture. Here's how it works. Then you go into it making an intelligent, educated decision, not going and thinking you're getting one thing and going under blind assumption that it will entail something else. So that whether or not I would have still purchased it, I don't know. It's hindsight, but I would have made a more educated decision, and I probably would have approached the program differently had I gone into it.
Last question, last bit of advice from you. Obviously you've invested a lot, and like I mentioned, you've been in the industry for quite a while. And so I'm kind of curious, how has your decision-making process about investments changed over the years, and how do you decide what to invest in nowadays?
There's 2 major categories of investment that I do. One is personal development and growth, and then one is business much more spreadsheet oriented. And I'm a massive proponent of continuous personal development. So whether we're reading books like you and I discussed pre-recording, Maxwell Maltz and psychocybernetics, or stuff from Joe Dispenza. I've done a lot of work with Tony Robbins, both business and personal development, and just understanding what makes people tick, understanding what makes me tick, because you can't separate the business from the personal, who you are at work and who you are at home. Okay, they may see different sides of you to an extent, but it still should be the same core values and the same ways that you treat people, the same standards that you hold for yourself and for others. So the personal development has made me, I think, also a better coach and a better leader of my team. So I have to feel like there's something that I'm crystal clear on what the value is going to be in that investment. And as far as the business investment is concerned, we have to be able to discuss the ROI right away. What are the deliverables? Read the contract, the proposal. Are they concrete in saying, here's what we will do for you? Not just here's how much time we will spend and we'll work on this stuff. I don't want to know how you're going to spend your time as the final outcome. I want to know what the result of that time that you spent is going to be. Because if that's not written out in black and white, then we get to the end and we go, what did we get from that? So I don't want to be the one, and I've been there in the past saying, well, I thought you guys were going to do this. And then going, oh, well, no, that wasn't technically what we wrote. We wrote this. And I said, well, didn't it mean this? And they said, no. If it was going to mean that, then we would have written that. I went,
Yeah.
Okay, note to self. So be exceptionally clear on the deliverables from everybody and anything that you invest in. That's the key.
Dr. Laura, how can people find you and connect with you? What's the best way?
My website is full of information. Would love to connect. Feel free to reach out to me there, which is very cryptic. Ready? It's laurasicola.com. But otherwise, people can reach out on LinkedIn and connect with me there as well. And I will just ask that if people connect on LinkedIn, which I do definitely invite them to do, that they tell me that they heard me here on the show with you, Kevin, the Career Coaching Secrets. It helps me to know where the connection is coming from. And then I'm happy to say yes.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Laura, honestly, I really enjoyed this conversation. Something that strikes me is like you are very, very clear about your different containers, your different boundaries, everything from pricing to deliverables and all that. And I think there's a lot of lessons that we can take away from this. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for just sharing all your years of experience just freely with us. I personally really appreciate it. I know our audience will too. So thank you so much, Laura.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Kevin.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.